Welcome back to the Bitcoin Economy Podcast, day 2 of the conference over in Las Vegas. We have Luke Xie. Hopefully, I mispronounced it probably. The co-founder of SatLayer. So, Luke, first and foremost, welcome to our podcast. We were just chatting real quickly before. You guys are crushing it right now. I'll just have you explain first and foremost what you guys do, and we'll dive further into it.
Yeah. All right. BM, everybody. Pleasure to be here and to see so much excitement, for Bitcoin and for crypto in Vegas. So we are the leading coin restaking protocol, really laying the foundation for the new economy built on Bitcoin. So really our vision is to be the economic layer so that Bitcoin can become the kind of golden reserve asset, right, for this new financial system that is, I think, in many ways kind of going back to Satoshi's original vision, right, of really rebuilding finance from the ground up, right, for using kind of, using the ledger, using blockchain, right, and having it be much more fair and accessible for folks.
We were also chatting too. So on the Bitcoin economy, we try to find real world use cases that you're not just holding Bitcoin, but making the Bitcoin work for you. And this whole new ecosystem that's being built out, right? So we're talking about meanwhile life insurance, for example, and you're like, oh, that's actually a pretty big use case for us. So can you just explain that a little bit further in terms of what types of companies you guys are working with or who's using you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think the simplest way to think about what we're doing is we enable full programmability, right, for Bitcoin. Technically for any asset, but obviously we start with the best asset, Bitcoin. And then, so then really it can then be integrated right into DeFi, into RWA stablecoins. Another way to think about what we're building is, EigenLayer kind of built right with Bitcoin and not ETH. And we take a very different approach than EigenLayer by really focusing on the economic end of economic security, right? And on use cases that will deliver real yield from day one. So as Avi kind of alluded to earlier, insurance is actually one of the big use cases for us, because if you think about how restaking and slashing operates, it actually maps really well to insurance, where by making slashing fully programmable, right, slashing is basically now the mechanism to have insurance payouts, right, for cover holders. And then the restaking yield is the insurance premium. Right. And the beauty here is because this insurance is now backed by restaked Bitcoin that we facilitate, right? It's yield bearing by nature. And so you have a built-in yield to actually solve the cold start problem for this insurance vehicle, right? So that the insurance premiums are actually subsidized by the Bitcoin staking yield from Babylon, the Bitcoin LST yield, and then our own, points/yield. And then over time, that will transition, right? And then, over time, there will be primarily the insurance yield as this thing gets bigger and bigger. And so the vision here is to really basically build Berkshire Hathaway, but on-chain with Bitcoin.
Love it. And you guys are absolutely crushing it on socials. And in the crypto space, everyone's familiar. Everyone's got 500,000, 1 million followers, right? And then you look at their engagement and there's nothing, right? And so it's like, all right, they bought followers. You guys have a 13% mind share, you said, on Gecko. So how do you guys do that? What have you guys learned from maybe other failed experiments on social? And ultimately, do you think you'll fight EigenLayer karate combat after? I'm just kidding about that last question. But no, in terms of the social piece of it, what do you think you guys have done differently or has been so successful?
Yeah, I think for us, it's really, putting a good amount of resources and internal focus on that, right? Because I think, there's the old saying, first time founders focus on the tech, second time founders focus on distribution, right? And I think in many ways, folks, builders, right, in the space are learning that maybe a little bit the hard way, because it used to be you can build the tech and people come. But I think now, we've kind of matured to a point where for some of the solutions in the space, it's actually not that differentiated. Like, for example, Ethereum L2s, right? Candidly, people generally don't really care about the differences between the various Ethereum L2s. And so it's really how do you kind of build that moat? And then so for us, the way we kind of thought about it is we certainly have the benefit of hindsight and being a fast follower to EigenLayer and learn from what they did well and didn't do well, right? And so we took a very different approach with our socials and our marketing, EigenLayer went, I think, extremely right curve, basically too much, right? Where, like a 30-page white paper is great, but like how many people actually read it? And so we decided to go very left curve, right? And make the topic of, restaking and like yield and slashing very accessible. And so we kind of focus on explaining how it works in plain English, right? Having a cartoon series that just makes it like, pictures worth 1,000 words, right? You see this like 4-panel cartoon, right? Get some of these concepts, and then we have like a series ongoing. And also just to make it fun, right? Like we definitely stream a good amount of like memes, right? And also I think just very actively engage with our community, because I think at the end of the day, when you think about what we're doing from a first principles perspective, it makes a lot of sense, right? So then it's really about really getting the word out and educating people on all the things that you're able to facilitate and do with restaking, because I feel like in general, it's actually a very misunderstood concept in this space, right? And so I feel like it's really falls upon us to just, explain how it works, right, in plain English, and to really show what are the key use cases that make sense from day one.
Yeah. So in simple terms, and we have an audience from, experts, crypto native, to people that I'm trying to bring over to the dark side here, but in terms of what you guys are doing in the simplest of terms, if I were to come to your website to get the yield, like how do I go about that?
Yeah. So if you go to our site, SatLayer.xyz, we have a deposit app that's been live for how long now? For quite a few months, actually. We have about 300 mil in TVL, I think a bit over 2,800 Bitcoins. We're live on a lot of the major chains: Babylon Genesis, Sui, Ethereum, BNB, BitLayer, with more to come. And yeah, so you can basically deposit. We take both wrap Bitcoin assets, right, like WBTC, FBTC, soon CBBTC, as well as all of the leading Bitcoin LSTs. So you kind of, take your pick of the asset that you want to deposit into our app, and then you'll start earning at least 3 sets of yield, as mentioned earlier: your Babylon yield, your LST yield, and then our yield. And if you mint on the LST on certain L1s like Sui, for example, that's incentivizing, that's actually your 4th set of yield. And then if you want to really get DeFi degen, you can, because we mint the receipt token for each asset that we take. So they're segregated from a risk management perspective, but then it enables you to do like lending looping or DexLP if you choose to do so. So, overall, it's still, I think strictly speaking, pre-deposits. And then we'll have kind of the first, what we call Bitcoin validated services, right, live in the next few months. One of which will be actually multiple insurance BVSs. And so then that's when the real restaking yield turns on.
Awesome, Luke. Well, hopefully people can hear us with this crazy noise we have behind us, but I think we'll be able to pick that up and have safe travels back to Singapore. And we'll have to bring you back on and do a much deeper dive. We're doing little sampler platters here at the conference, but thanks so much for coming on. Appreciate it.